Okay. Dear friends, I welcome you to Lomonosov Moscow State University Day at our online school on artificial intelligence law and ethics. I'm glad to meet you here, and today we will be able to discuss a wide variety of legal issues related to the application of artificial intelligence, from big data problems to commercial contracts and to intellectual property rights. And I'm glad to say that today we will be able to listen to lectures not only mine, the first one, but also by my colleagues. They are Professor Sofia Filipova from Moscow State University, and also Victoria Savina. He will be here just later, and she is also a professor of law. She works also in Plekhanov Plekhanov University in Moscow. So I believe you will be here, and our conversation will be very productive and useful. But before we begin, I would like to say welcome to Moscow State University. It's Russian first university founded in 1755. It was founded with the efforts of Mikhail Lomonosov, the #1 in science in Russia, and students gathered here to learn, to explore, to advance to the frontiers of knowledge. Here's a short video, if it will be possible, to watch about my alma mater, and you'll see why everyone who has studied here and who works here dream to make the scientific discoveries in this university. So it's the video for you, just to see. So it was short information about our university. As you understand, I like it very much. And by the way, the Moscow State University main building was the tallest building in the world outside of New York City at the time of its construction. And remind the tallest building in the Europe until 1990. Moscow State University has always produced highly qualified specialists who are recognized through the world. Maybe you know our first president, Mikhail Gorbachev, the famous artist Vasily Kandinsky, the political actor Andrei Sakharov, and also the star of the mathematics science, Andrei Kolmogorov, and so on, and many other scientists. The university was well established contacts with the most distinguished universities like yours and in other universities in the world, exchanging students and lecturers work with us, and even in this year we've got some lecturers from Europe, India, and different countries worldwide. So let's start the topic of my presentation. Just try to make it full screen. And so, can you see full screen presentation? I can hear you. Give me some sign. Okay. And so, legal framework for artificial intelligence on digital platforms. Of course, I should probably tell you why I choose such an issue and what its importance of the day. So, as you can see, my name is Yulia Kharitonova. I work at the university as a professor, and for a year I have been heading a special center for legal research on artificial intelligence and digital economy. This center was created by a directive from the rector of Moscow State University to provide an integrated approach to the scientific study of artificial intelligence. You see, scholars from every faculty are involved in the research on various aspects of AI, from mathematicians and neurobiologists to philosophers and psychologists and also lawyers, all working on global and applied research in this field. It's necessary to collaborate, and this cooperation makes it possible to see the solutions needed right now at this particular stage of AI development, of AI systems, AI technologies. You can also read some of full text of my papers in English on ResearchGate Science Network page, and you can check it if it will be necessary to get some information about my research, my study, my project in the Moscow State University. And today is one of the days when you and me can cooperate our authors to move forward on some issues. So in general, I invite you to interact with me. Please get in contact and respond from time to time to small surveys. I suggest that you can use chat box, but if it's difficult or impossible in your cases, raise your hand and speak directly to the microphone. But I think that it's more comfortable for all of us if you will check your ability to use chat box. Okay, what lecture plan do I propose today? we should probably start with what is meant by all these algorithms and recommendation systems. I won't go into the technical details if the situation allows it. I think that it's not necessary for lawyers, and we will focus on issues of social interaction, which requires regulation by law. And in addition, I'm sure that each of the speakers, according to the last year experience, it's possible to say that each of the speakers of our summer school want to present their own vision of artificial intelligence and their own vision of all the technologies. So it's not necessary to say something about the global opinion about this system, because it's urgent technology and it's really complicated to say only one word, only one phrase about these systems. That is why in the first part, I will talk about those aspects that are important for revealing the set topic of the lecture, just this case. The next one, the next position, the next step will be to introduce the basis business models. And it's not the correct screen, just a moment, yeah. And the next step will be the introduction, the basis business models of platforms that require artificial intelligence technology, which is in fact the main driving force behind the creation of algorithms. While researching this issue, I was surprised to learn that some platforms don't imagine their existence without AI and recommendations for users. When we turn to legal issue, the point number 3, as I understand, and find what the recommendations arise after the procedures of personal data and constrain the will of users by restricting the information presented to them by online platforms. Different countries have different policies in this regard, but in any case, many states have already established rules for platforms in this context. Even I've got some ideas about Russians and of course Indian legislature. But it's not all to clear up. Protecting users' rights and privacy requires transparency of the recommendation system. However, states can also understand the interests of businesses who do not want to expose their trade secrets, commercial secrets to competitors. This is a completely new area of discussion for lawyers today, and it's really interesting to discuss it with you in our class today. Finally, we will summarize the inputs and assume what kind of information should be disclosed to balance the interests of users, business, and government. But first, I wonder if it's possible for you, maybe you can share in the chat. It's interesting what services, what online platforms and what services are popular in your country, maybe what you recommend to use, and so on. It will be interesting to watch it so we can understand what examples we are discussing according to the lecture. Please send me some notes about the popular online services. I try to check the chat box. Mhm. Please send some information. Okay. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Amazon. Maybe something else, something strange. Snapchat. Okay. So, thank you. Google, of course. On the screen, you can see only platforms that are used for listening music. And you can also watch the number of the logos. So it means that, yeah, the car. Okay. Once I've read that VK, Vkontakte in Russian, is used not only in our continent, but also they've got some users in Australia, and it's not Russians. Sometimes it was problem with Facebook connection, and it was blocked in this country. So they decided, some audience decided to use the car, and so it's possible that they use it not only in Russia, but also. Thank you for your answers. So digital platforms are important for a wider range of businesses, essentially an element of the architecture of the digital economy power. Moreover, a digital platform is often the only way to launch business as a whole. For example, for streaming services, video hosting and cloud services, it is impossible to develop an effective analog that works without constant access to the internet. Many services have recently transformed to such an extent that they have become a platform or part of an ecosystem, which is ordering taxi, food delivery, communications, and others. By platforms, scholars and researchers mean sites and services that host public expression, store in or serve it up from the cloud, organize access to the through search and recommendation. The fields of business intelligence, big data, and social media analytics, which accumulate the necessary amount of information to improve the efficiency of business operations, stand out from the perspective of sustainable business information models. Thus, they're applied to decision makers as a basis for automated systems, which also include adaptive skills, for example, functionality for machine learning. And so we're speaking about artificial intelligence, and machine learning is the method of artificial intelligence systems. The term online platform describes a broad category of digital businesses that provide a meeting place for two or more different groups of users over the internet. Examples include search engine, and according to the chat answers you put down, it's possible. Online marketplaces, of course, it's the field of recommendation systems. So the collaborative and sharing economy and social networks. It is necessary to highlight two important aspect of the platform, like the model of the business. Digital platforms as online intermediaries come between and facilitate the connection of others. It's about community, of course. And the second point, the content they transmit is produced by others. It's not only about social media, social networks, it's also about marketplaces. And I think you can notice it. It is important to emphasize that in all cases, online platforms use artificial intelligence to process the data collected about users and generate their suggestions. Big data technology is important for the application of artificial intelligence on platforms of all kinds. Even if we don't know something about this model, but also it doesn't mean that they don't use artificial intelligence or some methods of these systems, of this technology. AI is generally defined as the ability to a machine to perform cognitive functions that we associate with the human mind, such as perception, reasoning, learning, interacting with the environment, solving problems, making decisions, and even demonstrating creative abilities. And all of this is possible by interacting with so-called big data. So data analysis is the main point for studying and using artificial intelligence. In this case, but not also in online platforms only. Each of us can be a user of one of the platforms that works along the following principles, which are presented on the screen. Maybe it's not necessary to read it, but for me, I mean, you can also watch the screen. But on the one of the most important problem is user safety, because with algorithms, the system gain the ability to limit the user's information field, immerse him in an information bubble, like an information cocoon, some researchers, they say about it, that is a complementary as possible to his beliefs. So it's a problem because you can have a critical point of view. You've got only the information. It may be news, political or cultural. It may be some information about items and services, but it also something like the cocoon, like the bubble around the user who is going to the digital platform. So algorithmic selection has become a growing source of social order, of shared social reality in information societies. Applications of automated algorithmic selection shape daily life, influence perceptions of the world, and influence behavior. Many people have long known that the main task of algorithms is to keep the user in front of the screen and make him view his feed as long as possible. It's the model role for all these online platforms, as you can see. And you and me may be faced with a choice that is not a choice, like this hidden on the screen. The variety of cat food is only appeared. They sell what is promoted only. For all that, it is the negative emotional content that causes the greatest involvement in the audience. It's about fakes, it's about conspiracy theories, it's extremist and offensive statements and other destructive content, which the online platform do not fight against effectively. And they've got some problems in this field. Later, I'll tell you some ideas about it, but before, just read this quote. Actually, I'm not sure who is this scientist whose quotation you can watch, but I think it's a great idea. Many big tech platforms have business models that raise questions about how they use their position on the big data markets. I mean, in one review, the founder of several internet campaigns assessed that quotation. This quasi-oligopolic market structure can be determinal to innovation and user freedom. And if it's possible, I'd like to discuss it with you. What do you think this quotation means? Do you agree with it? Why not? Please share your opinion. You can use chat box, or maybe you can say some words if you are interested in. So send me some ideas, please. Okay. Is everybody there? Mm-hmm. The question is, what do you think about this quotation? Do you agree this sentence or not, and why? Can you share your opinion? Please do it in the chat box in brief phrase, or maybe you can use your micro. Mm-hmm. So, they've got an opinion. One student says that she's agree with the quote, and she thinks that monopoly that some companies hold over the markets is very detrimental to innovation and user freedom, since it gives them very limited options, and also crushes any competition, big or small. Yeah. And the very idea of modern business is made around quality. Yes, yes, maybe somebody else. Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay. If you'd like, use the chat, and you can share your ideas. Yeah, and most of the students who is able to use the chat box for discussion, they agree with the quotation. Yeah, it was the reason why this quotation is here on your screens in our class. So as for me, this can be seen in cases such as the recent European Commission investigation against Facebook. Of course, you've heard something about it, which is accused of illegally using advertising data from its online marketplace and online dating platform to gain a competitive advantage for its own services. Online platforms live as digital feudal lords of data, you see. And for example, when we are working with China, the lawyers from China, they also use this phrase, feudal lords of data. Somebody who is able to collect huge spot of information, and just to prevent using of this information on the market. So yeah, I agree. There's that online platform is really good to connect people and influence for betterment too, and it's not against this business or these models. But like lawyers, we just try to identify some risks and to prevent them. Yes, of course, I like the online platforms too. So go forward. Recommendation systems act as personalized decision guides. 18 uses in decisions to matters to some decision and relate to personal taste. It's good. It's business innovation model. Actually, many users, they're comfortable these suggestions. Data access as the main problem of the digital platform is most evident in the operation of recommendation systems. So RSS is recommendation systems, you see, software tool and techniques that provide suggestions for items that are most likely of interest to a particular user. The suggestions relate to various decision-making processes, such as that items to buy, that music to listen, or what news to read online, and so on. The purpose of the recommendation system is to predict the user's behavior in relation to the object of information search and the formation of recommendations for objects with which he has not yet encountered. In computer science, it is most general form. Recommendation systems are presented as sub-technology of artificial intelligence. The mechanics of applying recommendation systems is the same like some methods of artificial intelligence technology. So it's just the type sometimes of using artificial intelligence. I mean, recommendation systems. It is a class of solutions that provides process performance without human input. Assistance in choosing decisions and prediction of objects that will be of interest of the user. This is fixed, for example, in Russian roadmap for the development of end-to-end digital technology, neurotechnology, and artificial intelligence that was contained in 2018. But it's not the standard decision. In many countries, they use some legislators in the acts, something like this. But in many countries, I try to clear up artificial intelligence is like cognitive function of human brain. And it's very important for us, like lawyers. In the process, recommendation system collect data about users using a combination of explicit and implicit preference elicitation methods, analyzing both users' responses to questionnaires and satisfaction questions. You can see on something like this on the platforms. Also using analysis of direct individuals' preferences and data on user browsing of certain content online, individual online browsing behavior, and user activity tracking pattern. So what's the problem? You can ask me. There are plenty of examples where suggestions have worked in an undesirable way. For example, in the summer of 2021, researchers discovered that YouTube's recommendation engine suggested the problematic videos that violated the online platform's own rules. Unwanted content selected by artificial intelligence of this platform accounted for 71% of the total number of videos viewed by the experiment's participants. It was the special experiment from one of the research teams. Experts concluded that the survey indicates an inherited contradiction between YouTube's algorithms, some of which recommended undesirable videos, while others attempt to remove them. At the same time, the platform refuses to disclose information about how it recommends and how its recommendation engine works. Another example, in 2021, also they've got a scandal situation with Facebook. Facebook insider Frances Hogan described in detail how the social network's recommendation service is organized. In September, the Wall Street Journal described how Facebook algorithms incite aggression and hate among users, how the social network is used for criminal purposes, spread fakes about the pandemic, coronavirus, and vaccination, and how Instagram damages the self-esteem and mental health to teenagers by causing suicidal thoughts. And you can check this material on Wall Street Journal website. It names it Facebook Files. It was an investigation, and they've got, as I remember, about 18 investigation papers about the recommendation system of Facebook. So it's a real problem of influencing to the community, to the users, just using recommendation system, working with artificial intelligence mechanics. Algorithm formation is designed to make something with people, to to make people spend as much time as possible in empty discussion, insulting each other in the comments, because Facebook makes money on this, on your attention or your involvement in this process. And according to the neuromarketing, for example, if you're involved in some process, it will be some pleasure or some hate speech. So Facebook loses money and viewers when such content is blocked. In going so, the like and share functions, the platform's main tools, accelerate the spread of hate speech. This is what the paper title, Collateral Damage, says. It's not my idea. It's not the journalist's idea. It's just the paper of this network. After all, basic product mechanisms such as virtual activity, recommendations, and optimizing for engagement are a significant part of why these types of speech flourish on the platform. Now, I need to take a brief survey of the following questions. I just try to start the questionnaire, and I'd like you to answer short questions. Do you agree that the recommendation mechanism is advertising and imposing to the user? And the next question, would you like to disable recommendation in order to independently search online for information, products, and services? Before you're using this questionnaire, I can point that I used it for my students in Moscow University, and many of them, in another way, said me that it's not important for them what was suggested, but in any case, many students are following to this suggestion. So it will be interesting in our audience. What do you prefer? What question do you agree, and what statement do you disagree? Mm-hmm. Okay. Somebody else? Mm-hmm. Maybe. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So thank you very much for your voting. Your participation is very important to my study, and it will be the point for the next discussion, of course. And it's interesting to check what was on your screen. So what was the result of our questionnaire, and after that it will be interesting to compare it with the next point. Okay. So you can watch the results. Agree about 86% on the first question, and the next one nobody wants, or maybe about half of our respondents don't want to get the independent search. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much for your voting. It was really exciting, and it will be our standpoint for next discussion. So what is the numbers on the screen? Policymakers and lawmakers worldwide are connected about this problem, and they try to contain information digital platform algorithm control. One clear idea today is to require that the algorithm recommendation be closed to the public. I mean, be disclosed, of course, be open to the public. This is necessary so that the user understands how the service works. According to our survey, we can see that it's not interesting to many young people, and I agree that's a new generation with new ideas, but the lawyers, they say this is necessary to open the algorithm mechanics, and they're thinking about transparency of the recommendation services, so that users trust that algorithmic recommendations is useful for them, but can also disable the suggestions. Various studies have been conducted to explore the issue of transparency in the algorithms used to determine recommendation system selection. For example, the role of transparency in music recommendation systems has shown that users like recommendations that they perceive to be transparent and feel more confident. The Regional Public Center of Internet Technology in Russia conducted a study of users' perception of recommendation engine. This survey, as you can see on the screen, shows that more than 77% of respondents believe that recommendation algorithms are a form of advertising. In this case, more than 48% of respondents believe that such technology doesn't impact the choice, like in our questionnaire, the choice of offering items or services, and more than half of them declare that their suggestions cannot force them to buy a product or service, and only 33% hold the opposite opinion. More than half of those survived believe that algorithms don't influence the choice of movies or TV shows, and at the same time, the vast majority of respondents, more than 74%, would like to be able to disable recommendation engines. Almost 11% of users don't not agree with such a statement, and some of them found it difficult to answer this question. The next step of transparency should be the user's ability to disable recommendation engine with one click, prohibit personal data proceeding, stop using the service, etc., thereby protecting the fundamental rights and freedom of choice. Regulation of the mechanisms and algorithms of the output of recommendation systems, including measures of protect children from irrelevant content, from the use of targeted advertising, from attempts to manipulate users are conducted in different states. And so it was a point for my research to compare the legislative in different countries. And it will be the most informative screen because it's necessary to say some words about all the countries. You can see it here. Legal opportunities for improving transparency or recommendation systems to users' protection. What is it? What way is perfect for different countries? So now, when we know how AI works in recommendation engines, let's look at that legal tools, policy markets, and lawmakers they deploy to solve the problem of users' data protection. And perhaps the most active today is China. Since March 2022, there is a rather radical regulation in China for digital platforms. From now standpoint, either declare the recommendation algorithm or leave the market. It's really strict recommendation, but according to the regulation on the management of algorithmic recommendations of information services, it's the act on the internet. The emphasis is precisely an algorithm recommendation transparency. These rules are addressed to algorithmic recommendation service providers. And also, according to our lecture, it's about all the digital platforms. The recommendation algorithms must be created, taking into account ethical guidelines, social, business, and professional ethics, and following the principles of fairness, openness, and transparency, scientific rationality, honesty, and integrity. The regulation takes precedence over the rules contained in other acts, including laws in administrative regulation. For example, in China, they've got the People's Republic of China cybersecurity law. And also, they've got the People's Republic of China personal information protection law. And also, this recommendation, are the previous act that it's necessary to perform, to inform if you are a digital company, if you are a digital online platform. The regulation contains several sections regulating different areas of creation and application of recommendation system. In terms of technical requirements for information services, for example, Article 10 of the regulation states that algorithmic recommendation service provides must manage user models and user tags, including allowing the user to select or remove tags related to the personal characteristic at the discretion. Also, it's possible to improve rules for geolocation and recommendations of so-called points of interest for users' visits, and must not record illegal and undesirable content. The provider of algorithmic advice services must clearly inform users about the provision of algorithmic recommendation services and properly publish the basis, purpose, the basic working mechanism of the algorithm recommendation service. And the regulation specifically emphasizes that the recommendation system cannot base the office on the user's personal profile, which allows stating the establishment of a non-discriminatory mechanisms or user access to various kinds of information services and products. Also, user must be provided with convenient options for disconnecting the services of algorithmic recommendation. If the user decided to disable the service of algorithmic recommendation, the provider of this service must immediately terminate the provision of the mentioned services. Users of many popular mobile apps in China, for example, TikTok, LME, Taobao, and many others they use in the previous life, are not able to turn off personalized recommendation now. And according to the opinion of my Chinese colleagues and Chinese students, for example, now the situation is changed. It's necessary to enforce these rules. What can we say about European Union? The main point, like motto for them, is deterring manipulation. Manipulating users' choice is the point for the individual points for European Union legislation. So the introduction in GDPR and Digital Service Act, DSA regulations, was an important trend in the development of legislation in the direction of transparency. Users of individual freedom have become a subject of debate in Europe. The principle of transparency in the processing of users' data requires that the information provided to the data subject be consents, easily accessible and easy to understand, and that the data subject is informed about the data processing operator and its purpose. The transparency of algorithms can be challenged by the fact that Article 22 has limited applicability because it applies only to decision based entirely on automated proceeding. This could mean that kind of right of explanation for the data subject alone this regarding of these acts, GDPR and DSA, cannot apply whenever there is even minimal human intervention. It is worth nothing the contrast between the transparency increasingly inspected from internet giants or governments and the relative lack of transparency supported by regulations such as the EU General Data Protection Regulation, I mean GDPR, regarding personal privacy. This divergent attitude is intended, at least in part, or correct the existing asymmetry of information between this place and restore citizen trust. Also, in the European regulation, the following aspects of algorithmic transparency are stipulated. In general, the European Union says it is necessary to protect fundamental rights on the internet. Discrimination, including unwanted discrimination, when the developer of the algorithm doesn't want to do it, but it's possible because of the technology, is forbidden. The protection of freedom of expression and data protection come to the fore, providers must prevent illegal content from appearing on the platforms, including through stop checks. Users can be better informed about how content is recommended to them and choose at least one opinion, not based on profiling. Manipulation of users' choice thought dark scams will be prohibited, and unsubscribing should become as easy as subscribing to a service. But it's just about subscribing. It's not about some recommendation that are desirable in this context. Since the initiators of listeners of today's lecture, colleagues from India, I took a look at what is happening in India in this area right now, and it's great experience actually. So the Indian experience, of my point of view, it's message verification and social media ethics. The main point for this problem. After years of discussion and debates, the Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology, Government of India, has notified new rules under the Information Technology Act, so-called IT Act, for monitoring social media, digital media platforms. The new rules aim to serve a dual purpose, increasing the accountability of the social media platforms such as Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, etc. You use it to prevent the measures and abuse, and empowering social media users by creating a three-level mechanisms of effective handling of complaints to discuss it, to trail it, and so on. The rules notified in India were implemented last year, on May 2021. The guidelines and provisions of new information technology rules 2021 provided against objectionable user-generated content. The rules intend to bring government control, or rather regulate the social media and digital news platforms, or they make news users and the tech giants more responsible in these changing times. Under this act, as I understand, significant social media intermediaries providing services primarily in the nature of messaging shall enable identification of the first organizer of the information, what is required only for the purposes of prevention, detection, investigation, prosecution, or punishment of an offense related to the sovereignty of integrity of India, the security of the state, friendly relationship with foreign states, or public order, or sexually explicit material, or child sexual abuse material, punishable with imprisonment for a term of not less than 5 years. In India, there is an emphasis on user verification to control fake news and hate speech. There is also a few focus on content filtration. Also, attention is paid to the problem of blocking user accounts and the rules. It is pointed out on giving users an opportunity to be heard. Opportunity to be heard. It's like the name of the right. In cases where significant social media intermediaries removes or disables access to any information on their own accord when prior intimation for the same shall be communicated to the users who has shared the information with a notice explaining the grounds and reasons for such action. User must be provided an objective and reasonable opportunity to dispute the action taken by the intermediary. We emphasize that in India, the Code of Ethics is not about the use of artificial intelligence technology, but about the ethics of media content. It will be interesting to note, according to the Russian experience, and just point this moment. However, in general, the Indian legislature focuses on the protection of users and the cyber sovereignty of the state, while not directly addressing the commercial activities or of digital platforms to the business models and so on. And of course, we should say some words about the Russian experience, and it will be the next screen. So, what can we say? On this slide, we want to match, to demonstrate that what trends are detected in the study. In the point of view from Russian legislation. Our country, like others, is now looking for a solution. What will be convenient and can help solve current problems? You can see the same position in different points as it was noticed in previous screen. And in Russia, soft law instruments are currently the priority regulator of the transparency of online platforms' algorithmic engine applying. It is well known that one potential method of restricting developers' freedom of action without requiring specifications in the legislation is or for administrative authorities to publish software design guidelines. This is supported by researchers who write that administrative agencies could work together with developers to determine the protection of the users, but also it's necessary to determine the properties that they think a piece of software should have. And then the software could be designed to meet those properties and permit proof. In 2020, the Federal Agency for Technological Regulation and Methodology of Russia developed a promising standardization program. In the priority area, artificial intelligence, they decided to prepare more than 200 standards in any spheres of application of artificial intelligence programs. In accordance with this program, in 2020, there is a document that title is Artificial Intelligence Systems, Ways to Forming Trust, General Provisions. This standard for developers and state organizations defines the concept of trust of artificial intelligence system. This act provides a classification of factors influencing the quality and ability of artificial intelligence systems to inspire trust in life cycle stage. Classification of main ways of ensuring trust of artificial intelligence systems. You see, at the same time, this standard cannot be used for strong or general artificial intelligence according to the Act. Russia has also adopted a code of ethics for big data and also for artificial intelligence. In these codes, we can see that they describe the risks of using a recommendation system, including the impact of human decision-making, transparency on objectivity in data selection. And in 2021, leading Russian technology companies adopted the Code of Ethics for Artificial Intelligence, which initiated voluntary self-regulation and implementation of a so-called soft power tool to build consensus between AI and humans. The Code of Ethics for Artificial Intelligence has a special section, transparency, and it means transparency of data collection, data sets, information processing. I believe that ensuring transparency of the algorithms, as well as users' understanding of why a particular suggestion was made, has to do with ethics. On the one hand, standards and codes of ethics don't solve the problem on holding dishonest platforms accountable. But on the other hand, there remains an area beyond the scope of laws, even ever strict ones, that is still subject to ethical standards. As you remember, I think, as you noticed, for example, China has a rule that outside of direct regulation that was meant, platforms and recommendation systems operators must follow self-regulation, industry standards, improve service specifications, and provide services in accordance with the law and under public supervision. The bet is on self-regulation within the framework of ethical and legal standards, as well as the requirements of Chinese society. The same can be said of the European regulation experience at the global level. In its acts and policies, the EU proposes a return of uncomplicated disclosure obligations. The European model fails to balance the information asymmetries and unequal bargaining power suffered by small and medium-sized enterprises and, of course, private users. In practice, the EU model consists of either poor self-regulation, codes of conduct, for example, and unenforceable co-regulation schemes with a set of technical standards of platforms. At the same time, the above cases of algorithmic control basis by digital platforms requiring a legal regulation of algorithmic disclosure rules. In Russia, they've got such a draft. And according to the draft, law has been developed that should eliminate the problem of the accountability of the work of recommendation algorithms, which are based on a non-transparent data collection scheme and creates risk of promotion of profitable agenda for service owners or third parties and hiding inconvenient content. The draft doesn't provide a prohibition on the recommendations at all, but is aimed to protecting users from attempts to manipulate them. So let's check. Is it possible to use all of these ideas? The operators of the services will have to publish the terms of recommendation system engine and inform the users of the data they collect. Users will be able to complain about the work of recommendation algorithms in Russia. This draft provision relates to only just social networks and video hosting, but they've got the idea to perform it in any case. So Russian consumer goods and services aggregator named Ozon has demonstrated the opportunities of its platform. So recommendation on Ozon is a set of widgets on the side of on the side and in the app with a selection of items that may be of interest for the user. And let's try just to discuss what Ozon opened to the users. What is the mechanism? What does do this program? How does the AI algorithm work in this context? Just try to understand. Selection of candidates, for example. Recommendation service selects several thousand candidates among Ozon products and that are relevant to the context of showing recommendation. Similar goods are selected in the same category in the current product. Related products are from those categories that are often pushed together with the category of the current product. For the personal recommendation widget, the categories in which the user bought or looked at the products are analyzed. After the selection, it is necessary to rank the candidates. The selected 2,000 or 3,000 items are ranked according to the user's pushes probability. The ranking of these items depends on the attributes that the machine learning model deemed important. As a result of the ranking, each item is scored from 0 to 1. The score obtained in the previous step is increased for the product if it is promoted, and promotion is the pushes of a boosting coefficient for money. The top may be similar products, so no more than 2 products from each category is selected in the final listing. And voila, depending on the widget, anywhere from 3 to 200 items selected in the previous step will be added to the recommendation for the user. Let's start one more survive. Put a plus sign in the chat box if the description is clear and sufficient for you, or give me a minus if you didn't understand it. It's the real example on the website of digital platform. I'm waiting for your reactions in the chat, plus or minus. Was it clear for you, this explanation on digital platform? Of course, it's necessary to read, yes, but exactly, if you are buying something, would you be able or interested to read the explanation? Maybe not in all the contents, but it's great. It's great. I can see many pluses. Okay, thank you very much for your work. And the next point. According to this survey, according to this idea, I can see that it works. The idea of the legislatures, of policymakers, it works. It's interesting for users, for private persons, and for companies to watch the ideas of recommendation systems. But while I was preparing this lecture, I decided to check something interesting. What is the new step of our research? It's not maybe the relevant conclusion, but it's necessary to point pros and cons, transparency requirements for artificial intelligence of algorithmic recommendation systems. What new legal challenges we can explore here? The study revealed that despite the significant steps in the development of legal acts that have been made by legislators or different countries, and these steps, they're made in the same direction. But we've got some problems. According to the screen, you can check it. First, we noticed that recommendation algorithms are constantly improving and changing, becoming more complex and not obvious. The legal requirements for transparency can be justified by a one-time publication on the principles of the system. The issue is that algorithmic transparency aims not only to accrue the ability to identify the source of the data flows used and generated by AI systems, to accurately reproduce the mechanisms by which these models make specific decisions, but also to constantly learn to adopt the context. Consequently, a legal mechanism for regular auditing of systems is required. It is necessary to regularly update the information disclosure. Secondly, it is obviously that at the legislative level, it is not possible to establish exactly what information is required to disclosure. According to our experiment, it was enough for you, and you've got your pluses in the chat box. Maybe I've got my pluses according to the experiment. The underlying logic is that there is no one-size-fits solution. Providers need to identify on a case-by-case and service-by-service basis, which those main parameters that have to be disclosed. A possible solution would be to establish best practices for platform or entire industry disclosure of recommendation system principles. This could mean that a sort of a right of explanation by GDPR. However, it is not clear whether such an explanation should be referred excessively to the functioning of the algorithm system, or whether it should cover a particular feature of the algorithm that affects the decision. Finally, the most urgent problem today is the collision between the rules of transparency of recommendation systems and preserving the commercial secrecy of the digital platforms like business models. As stipulated in the Trade Secrets Directive, a trade secret is information which meets three requirements. It is secret, it has commercial value due to its secrecy, and it is subject of reasonable steps by the information holder to keep a secret. Algorithms may be classified as trade secrets, and the extent that there are pieces of information, in particular instructions aiming at performing a production-related task. Therefore, algorithms can fall within the definition and so can be protected as trade or commercial secrets, as long as they satisfy the above mentioned requirements. That is, experts have only to access from a legal perspective to the prospects of preserving the commercial information of digital platforms is open to ensuring the public interest in the openness of recommendation algorithms. So, conclusions. It is now clear to lawmakers and politicians worldwide that government and public intervention in the operation of recommendation algorithm is unavailable. The choice is between the law and the practice of companies in the order of self-regulation. Most likely, the middle way will be justified when the codes of ethics and industry standards continue to be applied against the background of the option of the laws on X legal acts. We should not expect that legislature of completely reject recommendation system. Of course, it's impossible now, as this will never have a negative impact on the process of the services. But even excessive additional regulation in the context of already existing requirements in the field of personal and big data may lead to a loss of consumer value of such services by making the process of developing and maintaining such system more complicated and expensive. So, dear colleagues, thank you very much for your interest in my research, in my lecture, and your participation. It was a great pleasure to work with you today. Now, you can ask me any question and feel free for asking. You can use chat, and also if you've got some questions or you will got some questions later, you can use the contacts on the slide. Those who don't have any questions yet, I'll tell you what is time for a break before the next lecture, and let's stay in touch. Also, I'm here and you can send me your questions. Thank
Julia,
you very much for
there is a question. Julia, but there is a question.
Yes, I tried to check the chat, just a moment. It was the part for all who hasn't any questions, but I can see the question in the chat. Where is it? Yeah, I can the rising hand. Okay, you can speak. What's the problem? This your micro? Unable. Just a moment. I try to do something. Maybe our colleagues can help. Yeah, it's possible. Okay.
My name is Saksham Tiwari. I am from India. Namaste from India, ma'am. Ma'am, I have a question like on one instance in the states there is a huge discussion going on the right to be forgotten regarding the data which is kept by some organizations during their purchase. They have making real purchases. And another instance we are get it figured by the code and ethics, and everyone is aware that in the today's era we big data and AI is using for analytics too, like organizations are using the same for the checking of the psychology of the specific buyers also. Like if we go for any organizations, they check for their discount periods or any offers they want to get to their customers. Before going onwards, they first check the psychology of customers. Like if the person who is a one-time buyer or any other type of buyers, and how much he can purchase with us, and how we can get many big amount of purchase from it. So this is a triggered form of sales. I in my point of view, ma'am. How in your point of view, ma'am, how the same will be triggered? Like if both are right, then how is this possible that both can be corrected or regulated by the code of ethics only?
It's a very interesting question. Thank you for the interesting, but it's also kind of provocative question, because if we're speaking about using personal data and some documents in different aims, it's really a huge point for the user and also for the platform and also for the government, the public authorities. And in case of studying huge amount of data, I think that it's important to prepare some laws, some rules that makes possible to disable this ability to the platforms, first of all. And I understand that it's really difficult to check, was it unused or no? And according to the research we are working on with my European colleagues, they are also interested and thinking about it. How can they check this ability from the users, because we can responsible for this using data or don't using data only the platform, but we can be able to check even the third party. Is it used or not by the third party? For example, some companies who are providing services and items and so on. So it's really difficult, and maybe it will be the next step. And if you're interested, I will be glad if you be a part of our team with young researchers to think about it and to prepare something in this way. So thank you very much for your interest and for your question. I also see the next question, and just try to find it. Oh, it's
Yes, ma'am.
not a question, but thank you very much, Karushana Badada. It's a great honor to be here and to get this review. So another question.
Yes, actually, ma'am. Thank you, first of all, for the insightful workshop that you've given. I do have a question regarding how recommendation systems, or in general, data privacy is a concern, a big concern right now, especially with a lot of people using social media platforms and different online services. What's your take on authorities being able to access this information and then using it against those users in the court of law? Is it something that's being mandated? Is there any laws being passed, or what's your view on it, ma'am?
Mhm. if we're speaking about, thank you very much for your question. And if we're speaking about governments and some official bodies, I think that it's illegally if they have some access to the private data. And it's forbidden in legal acts in different countries. As I understand, it was the main point of the question, and I absolutely agree that it's impossible. And it's illegal if they've got some access in these cases. But of course, in some situation, they've got some rules that get them available to the data. But I've got a survive that was prepared 2 or maybe 3 years before this class, and actually many people, many students, young people from my course, they said that it's not important for them if the private data, but not the all sensitive, for example, data, but their ID number, their passport, and so on, will be able to the authority. We've got the portal, the website. It's called State Service, and all the information is there. And of course, they understand that our states in every country, they've got this information. If we're speaking about sensitive, so-called sensitive information, according European Union, for example, position, of course, it's forbidden, but in any case, they've got some rules. And if the state, if the government can prepare some rules, they also use it for getting our private information. One of friend of mine, he said, like the person who works in internet industry, IT industry, he says that if you've got some privacy, you shouldn't use internet at all. But I'm afraid it's impossible in our age. So if we have any questions, I think that was the question in the chat too. Thank you very much, my dear colleagues. It was really interesting. And yes, send me in private maybe your contacts. So if we're speaking about some members of the research team for young researchers, for young staff, if you are interested, you can send me your ID, email, and so on, and we'll stay in touch. I'll send you some information, and maybe we can work together. So thank you very much. You got your break, maybe coffee break, before the next lecture. And after that, our Professor Sofia Filipova will be with you, and also I will be with you to get new information about the next step of using artificial intelligence in commercial sphere. So thank you very much. See you.